This might be the point to pull out the board, just because I want to look at the board itself, because there were versions for cities all over the country in a way.
Right.
And but we find out Atlantic City, for various reasons, one big reason, became like the iconic one.
Right.
And this is fascinating. I mean, Oriental Avenue, I just figured there's streets in Atlantic City, but they all actually mean something. Oriental Avenue is where the Asian population was in Atlantic City.
Right, and Atlantic City was deeply segregated, and it actually became a place where a lot of African Americans who were living in the South trying to find a better life up north would come. Kind of almost, it reminds me a little bit of like the Harlem Renaissance and this huge migration that was happening. And they came to Atlantic City, but unfortunately it was a deeply segregated place.
And they went here.
Right, and we know that because there's a Quaker deposition from Ralph's case where one of the lawyers asks about the board, and she said, oh, we had this maid who, worked for us, we loved, and she was black, and we wanted her acknowledged on the board, so we put her street on. And I thought that was crazy, and then I looked at the 1930 census was a huge gift to this book. And I looked through the census records for Atlantic City, and sure enough, if you look at the streets of Atlantic City, Baltic and Mediterranean, those were very segregated neighborhoods.
And those are like the lowest rent spots on the board.
Right.
However, the blacks do have some revenge, because kind of like 125th Street in Harlem, some of the best spots on the board are Kentucky.
Right. And also Atlantic City at the time was a hub for some of the most incredible jazz talent ever. And I'm a big music person, so learning about this was very exciting to me. That and there was a lot of integration actually that was happening. So whether you were black or white, you would go to hear, whoever was playing at Kentucky Avenue.
So if you were going to great food,
Right.
great restaurants, and great jazz, you would go to the red board. You would go to the red spots on the board. And before we get to my favorite spot on the board, what is the single most important slot on the entire board? What's the single one title that matters most?
Oh, well, in terms of the lawsuit, Marvin Gardens. So when Charles Todd learns the game, and Charles Todd is a man living in Philadelphia, he learns the Quaker Atlantic City version through a friend. And he's in Philly, so he doesn't know Atlantic City well. So Marvin if you go to Atlantic City, it's Marvin with an E-N. And he copies the board, but he makes a spelling error. He spells it Marvin with an I-N and doesn't think much of it. And then when Darrow copies that, he copies the spelling error. And Charles Todd later jokes in his deposition that it's one of the most repeated spelling errors in history. Because if you think about it, every Monopoly board now just about has Marvin with an I-N. So
that's right.
Whoops.
I don't know if any other boards have anything unusual, but my favorite is, of course, New York Avenue. I'm not sure if all the beige, but New York Avenue is where you would find male prostitutes. Yes,
it was one of the earlier gay districts as well, which when you think about kind of the gay rights movement in this country, that was way ahead of the idea of even having like a gay district or gay neighborhood.
One of the first gay bars in the entire country was on New York Avenue.
Exactly. And also, for whatever it's worth, just from a technical standpoint, this is the best part of the board.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Gay gentrification strikes again. If you're going to buy properties, you want to buy the beige.
Right. They get landed on more often. They're cheaper to build on than Boardwalk and Park Place.
Get more bang for your buck for what you do. So that's where you invest in. Don't put hotels, put four houses.
Yeah, exactly. A housing shortage. You've learned well.
Did the Quakers...